Jason Stark did his usual deep dive into the impact of the shift on Major League Baseball. And it was really revealing because it's actually more severe than I would have thought, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, first of all, and I'm just going to go down the list. I'm not going to ramble too much about them. I got to give the numbers, really. In 2013, Mr. Hewer, there were 6,882 defensive shifts, right?
Yeah.
Last season, 2021, 59,062.
Oh, okay.
You know, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, by the way, a footnote on 2013, 6,882. Yeah, I wish that the St. Louis Cardinals would have used some shifts against Big Papi in that World Series. But anyway, I digress. Some other things that jump out here, 51% of all balls put in play last year were hit into a shift, not counting home runs.
Okay.
51% of all balls put in play, non-home runs, were hit into a shift. And that's just balls in play. And Baseball Prospectus broke this down, a guy named Russell Carlton who's really good. He found out that for the first time in any full season, left-handed hitters saw more pitches with a shift than they did without a shift. And this is why left-handed hitters are crying about this so much, that they're just taking their game away. And they push back on this notion, well, hey, big boy, just hit the ball the other way. Problem solved. And they're saying, Freddie Freeman included, saying, not as easy as that sounds. I mean, I think they're probably correct when they say it's not as easy as it sounds. But if you're a great hitter, you should be able to control your bat and do what it takes to give yourself an advantage. I mean, I don't buy it along those lines. You know, if you don't want to adapt, then fine. You don't have to adapt. But you don't get to holler about shifts. You don't get to cry about how unfair it is, because you're not even trying to beat the shift. And that, to me, that's on them. You know, that's just the way I look at it.
It's interesting.
Bill James.
You said, sorry, but you
Go
said
ahead.
Freeman. Freeman's one of the guys I saw that did adapt. I'm curious why he would even complain, because I watched a couple times where he would hit the ball the other way when they just left all left field open for him, and he complained at length in this piece. Yeah, wow,
I know. All right, Bill James wrote about this, and anything Bill James puts together for his handbook, the numbers are golden.
Uh-huh.
There were 22% more hits taken away by the shift last season than given away. In other words, people say, well, you know, sometimes the shift actually works against the defense. Well, that's true. But the bottom line is there were 22% more hits taken away compared to what the shifts give away when people successfully hit the ball to the opposite field, basically. So it just shows you it can be done. But because a lot of it is the stubborn refusal by left-handed hitters to do it, they have put themselves at a disadvantage, a great disadvantage. The league-wide, the number of shifts that cost hits last year, right, according to Bill James, caused the league-wide, as in major league-wide, batting average to drop by 4 points last year, just based solely on outs, that balls in play that were turned into outs by the shift.
That's
4 points.
Too many. In a game that is struggling to get hits to begin with, Bernie, that's too many.
Here's one for you, Bill James. 4,802 hits were taken away by balls hit into the shift in 2021. 4,802.
Ooh.
I mean, wow.
Yeah. Wow is right. Oh, my goodness.
I know, right? He did point out, though, that there were some outs given away because of what Bill James described in his handbook as, quote, defense is shifting and getting too clever for their own good. In other words, getting a little too cute with some of the shifts and getting so cute that the shift failed because they set up these elaborate alignments that just, were kind of stupid, frankly. So he was critical of basically those who try to do too much with the shift instead of just taking what would have given them a big advantage anyway. But that's one of the problems with managers now. Everyone wants to show they're the smartest guy in any dugout anywhere,
Yes.
According to Sports Info Solutions, our friends there, the pull-heavy shift candidates, most of them left-handed, batted .219 last season on ground balls and short line drives when they faced a shift. With no shift, their batting average was .247. That's a pretty big difference, .247 to .219. According to Baseball Prospectus, on ground balls hit by left-handed hitters, the shift crushed the batting average, suppressed the batting average on balls in play. Pardon me, my voice is bad. By 35 points. So the shift cost left-handed hitters 35 points in their batting average as a group.
Wow.
Only 3 points for right-handed hitters. Only 3 points for right-handed hitters who don't encounter nearly the percentage of shifts that left-handers do. So that's just a few of the things. There's a lot more where that came from. And he also, Jason Stark, and frankly, I found this stuff to be unsatisfactory. Not the writing or the reporting, but they put in some experimental things in the AA, also that Atlantic League, to actually put the idea of like, okay, suppose we did away with a shift, or suppose we didn't allow, you can still shift, but this wouldn't be allowed, this wouldn't be allowed, that wouldn't be allowed. But ironically enough, the measures that they took didn't change much in terms of batting average and all this other stuff. But people rushed in to say, well, but you really can't compare it to the major leagues. It's a whole different thing. And I understand what they're trying to say, but for me to try to explain it, it would just take up too much time, and I would be frustrated trying to explain it. That's why you need to read it. But so these test programs in the minors, let's just say they were inconclusive. I happen to think the numbers that we see in Major League Baseball, the ones that I've shared here today, actually I think they're pretty conclusive, But Jason Stark also talked to some club officials, some team officials. And here's the best answer he got in terms of like the shift and what should we do and what's best for the industry and all this stuff. Here's the best answer. It's, to me, the only answer. Team official number 2 said, quote, "My position is always tell me what the rules are and we'll play by the rules. The NFL and the NBA change their rules all the time. Why shouldn't baseball be able to do that if it makes our game a better product? Bingo. End of discussion." Right?
We do need to make the game better. Agreed. Bernie, I'm going to forget who has been on with us that has said this, but they've said this a number of times in comparison to the NFL. NFL is not afraid to make rule changes to make the game better for its viewers and its public.
Right.
Major League Baseball is always like pulling teeth to get things like that accomplished.
It's just kind of crazy. And I admit I don't really know what the answer is. Like if someone asked me, okay, you have to vote on this, which way would you vote? Part of me believes, look, do we tell defensive coordinators in the NFL that they have to deploy their defenders a certain way? It's like, well, no, you can't use 5 defensive. No, you can't use 6 defensive backs. Yeah, we know you're going up against a great quarterback, but you can't do that. You can't use that many. You have to have more linebackers on the field. So when you look at it through that prism, the idea of basically telling baseball managers and teams, no, you can't do that. You can't deploy your 9 fielders the way you want to. It just there's something like fundamentally wrong with that to me. But yet I also know that's the quandary here, because I don't like the people dictating to teams how they should use their personnel. But again, something's got to give in terms of what the shifts are doing to Major League Baseball. Unfortunately, there's not enough hitters who are willing to adapt and adjust and hit the ball the other way. I would even argue, with not total confidence, but some confidence, this is one of the reasons it explains Matt Carpenter's demise. And he was, and I think, all kidding aside about when I tease the Carpenter haters, I think that's one of the reasons why people, good, reasonable people, not haters per se, were so frustrated with him because he just flatly refused to do what he had to do to, in effect, salvage his own season or salvage his own performance. He just wouldn't do it. Just kept hitting in a shift time after time after time. John Mozeliak, encouraging him to hit the other way. The analytics people that they have encourage him to hit the other way. I know coaches try to encourage him to hit he wouldn't do it. And there's a bunch of guys like that. I mean, they're all over the major league. So to me, that complicates the situation too, because it's like, well, wait a minute. Do you want to beat the shift or not? Yeah. If you don't want to, then shut up. It's tough. It's very, very, very complicated. By the way, Freddie Freeman said, this is the thing that he hates, okay?
Okay.
He said that rover in right field, it's very rare that I hit one into that shift. It's just the one up the middle is the one that gets me. I'm like, you've been taught your whole life to hit a line drive up the middle. Every coach has always taught us that. And now you're out when you do that. So maybe if they would eliminate that and they kept the shortstop on the left side of the bag, I might get more hits. I understand. I understand what he says.
But
right?
I also go, hey, defense is part of the game too.
Right.
That's the one thing that bugs me when I hear those kind of statements. Well, we're taught to do this. Okay, well, as a defense, I'm taught to try and eliminate what you're doing. So guess what I'm going to do? If you're going to hit it here, I'm going to play there. So it's up to you to make the adjustment. I mean, the game is about adjustments. That's how it's played.
Since the beginning of time,
yeah.
Right? Max Muncy of the Dodgers said, the guy that's all the way in the hole in the outfield, I don't get as mad about that one. It's when the shortstop is right up the middle. That's the one that gets me the most. Look, if I roll a ball over into the 4-hole between first and second and it gets caught, that's fine because that's a bad swing. I don't deserve that hit. But when I smoke one that the pitcher is jumping out of the way of and the shortstop is just sitting there waiting for it, that's the one that gets me. And I understand it. I mean, at least Max Muncy's saying a lot of these times, well, when we hit in the shift, it's my fault. I ain't going to blame anybody else. But he's just saying that, and it's right. What he and Freddie Freeman said is totally correct. I mean, every hitting coach I've ever talked to, they want their guys to hit the ball hard up the middle.
Yeah, yeah.
And now that's being taken away from them. But you know what they found out in the minor leagues when they were testing these different alignments? No, you can't put the shortstop on the bag. He's got to be to the left of the bag or whatever. They found out it really didn't matter because the shortstop gets there anyway. In other words, if you tell him, well, you can't stand like basically even with the bag, you got to go to the other side. You got to go to the shortstop side, and you got to be there. They found it, and understandably, most of these shortstops are so quick that it doesn't matter. They can get right to the bag just like that. So one of the players in this story was saying, like, the only way that would work is if you make the shortstop stand, 10 to 15 feet away. See, and that gets into, to me, it's too overarching. Mm-hmm. That's when you're telling teams, like, well, no, you have to put your guy 15 feet away from the bag. Well, why? That doesn't solve the problem. It's this thing is so frustrating, and it's not necessarily easy to. Some people think they have a solution, or it's like, no, this is the way it's got to be, 100%. I just think there's a lot of layers to this. I just think there's a lot of layers to this, right?
Yes. Again, the way you just described that is like, okay, before long, we're going to have two hash marks, one on the left of second base and one on the right, and your middle infielder can't play on the other side of that, which that's not the way the game's played. Yeah.
The most shifted batters in 2021, your boy Matt Olson, 580 times. Freddie Freeman, 580 times. Plate appearances, that is.
Yep.
Kyle Seager, not Corey, Kyle, 572 times. Ozzie Albies, 565. Alvarez, the big boy from Houston, 533. Ohtani, 509. Max Muncy, 505. That's a lot.
Yeah.
That's a lot. So I don't know, but I do think that I think it's something Manfred's going to push for, and I don't know who's going to push back, and I don't know if there's a reasonable compromise, But again, I think it's the third time I said this now, so I apologize for that. But it's hard for me to feel like really sorry for left-handed hitters who just make no attempt to adjust and beat the shift. And the way you beat the shift enough times, guess what? They're not going to shift on you.
Yeah.
You know, they'll line up in a more routine way.
The same reason they're lining up at over second base, they will start lining back up over the hole at short if you keep hitting the ball in that spot. I mean, that's the bottom line there. It's just you got to adjust.
Well, there were some opinions expressed in here too that people saying, "Why I don't like the sort of like the downward effect on this." In other words, like if you're trying to accommodate Joey Gallo, changing rules to make Joey Gallo happy, and these other left-handed sluggers happy, there's other hitters, the ones that people claim they want to see more of in baseball. The high contact guys, the guys that'll punch it the other way, the guys who aren't swinging for the fences or trying to get on base. You pitch them outside, they'll line it to the opposite field. He said if you start eliminating or limiting these shifts, these singles hitters who shoots the ball the other way, they're not going to be helped by this. This one general manager said, quote, "I know left-handed hitters are frustrated by the shift, but in terms of how you incentivize competition, I struggle with that. Banning the shift is not going to take the ball out of the air." And he's right. It will actually penalize players that we say we want to see more of, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's another good point. That's what I mean. There's no easy answers here. Right?
No, I just don't like extreme stuff sometimes. I don't mind changing ideas, but also as a player, you have to be open to adjusting yourself. It's not just because it's your way or the highway kind of thing as a player. Oh, this, like you said, we can't adjust everything to fit Joey Gallo because not every player is Joey Gallo. Just
that's right.
One guy.
That's 100% right.
So
I don't think Bob Ramsey minds me sharing this text message. Our own, the great Bob Ramsey, my idol. He said, "Dumb hitters only want to jack homers. Try to hit 50 doubles. It'll change." And then he said, "Of you and I."
Uh-huh.
False, of course. You guys are the best.
Oh.
That's okay if he lies like one time in that note.
Yeah. Thanks for lying for us, Bob.
But no, he's right.
Yeah.
You know, imagine like what Joey Gallo could do as hard as he hits the ball if he just tried to go the other way. How many doubles would he have?
Uh-huh.
Right?
Yep.
I don't know.
Hey, John Heyman sends out a tweet. Best thing happened today are MLB and the Players Union convened twice, broke up after 5 hours. They started and agreed to meet again tomorrow.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not going to like get off the air and like do jumping jacks, but that's good. I couldn't do jumping jacks anyway. That's good though. I mean, you know, that's what you want to hear. You just want to hear that there's some traction in the talks. You know, that they're making an honest effort, a genuine effort, and there's some traction in the talks. Because they got a lot, man, they got a lot of stuff to sort out. A lot of stuff. I was surprised really how many things are still on the table that are big things and the things that are the biggest points of contention, you know?
Yep.
So, anyway. I want to apologize to our listeners. I had a couple of friends text me during the show and said, "Are you all right, man?" I don't know how to explain it. My voice is very scratchy today. It's kind of cracking up a little bit. I don't know that there's a specific reason for it, but I know I sounded a little rough, and I'm actually fine. Dragging a little bit, but who doesn't drag on Mondays? But yeah, my voice just was just off today. So if I sounded like Peter Brady and the Brady Bunch, people will remember that episode, the old timers. That would explain it. It's just scratchy. So I'm going to try to get everything fixed by tomorrow. So thanks for putting up with me, especially Jim Hewer.
That dinner you're going to have tonight will help. I know that.
Well, that pasta bolognese, man, is a specialty. It's quite good, and she's not even an Italian girl.
That sounds awesome.
I think she could actually maybe get some kind of honorary title, though. Jim, you have a good night, man.
Thank you. You do as well.
And Charlie Tuna coming up next. Then we'll be back tomorrow at 3 o'clock. Bernie Miklasz with Jim Hewer and David Solomon.